Random as hell here. I decided to start a little mini series. Unlike the other ones I started, this one will come out right after each other because I'm going to start recording these right away and just start uploading them, because I made a whole video about this that was about an hour long, and for some reason it will not upload. So no matter how long it takes, basically it uploaded, it processed, it disappeared. And if it does upload after this somehow magically, I am taking it down and replacing it with these, because this will just be simple and easier anyway. I don't care. So I am a big fan of monster truck racing, and the last couple of years of the sport have been the worst by far, especially for one promoter known as Feld Motorsports, aka, well, not aka, it's their division, Monster Jam. And this video is going to start off by going through the history of Monster Jam and bring you up to speed. So without further ado, let's get into it. Monster Jam was started in 1992 by the United States Hot Rod Association, or USHRA. Though not called Monster Jam yet, it was technically the start of the series. This is what I consider the golden years of monster truck racing, because this was really the best competition there actually was. It was all racing, very strict competition, with a lot of drivers that really loved to compete with each other, and so on. The TNN era is exactly what it sounds like. These races were aired on TNN, also known as the National Network. This started from 1997 and went on until 2002. Now, they actually originally were live on TV through USA Motorsports, but was bought out by the USHRA, of which changing the format. But I'm actually going to get into that in another video with the early controversies of the sport. TNN era started off with just racing and would also include stuff such as tractor pulls, mud drags, ATV racing, such and so on. But as it went on, it included more and more just focus on the monster truck racing, especially after they cut their live broadcasting and went into pre-taped races that would air later on after the race was over. Just a quick opinion of mine, I think they should really go back to live races. I really wish they would. And I'd love to see that happen. Other than that, basically what happened here was in the 90s, it was just pure racing. In 1999, they did something a little bit different. At the end of the series, they had something called a World Finals. This really wasn't really done yet, exactly, to my knowledge anyway, and was taped at St. Louis, Missouri. They split it up into two shows, from what I remember, two broadcasts of both racing. And then the next year, things changed in the year 2000 when they added a new competition, freestyle. Freestyle's always been there in the background, but never was aired as an actual competition into the year 2000. This would give way to the first actual official World Finals in Las Vegas, Nevada at Sam Boyd Stadium in year 2000, with a racing championship and a freestyle championship on the line. This was, I believe, the start of when they usually started their regular season, as they do now, starting it off in January and ending it in March, with an unofficial start in Minneapolis in December. This was a brand new format for them in the year 2000 with freestyle, which gave them a little more creativity with the obstacles as they went on. Most of the 2000s tracks were very basic, like they were in the 90s, where they usually had the mounts for the other competitions, with two sets of crush cars for the monster truck racing, usually St. Louis style, or a drag course. This would change as it went on, but that was the basic use for then. And as it went on in the 2000s, they started adding more freestyle obstacles and putting it more monster truck base as it went on. This was, by my standards, probably the best era of the sport besides the 90s. This was, because I do like freestyle, this was really the perfect mixture. This was 90s like racing, where it was head-to-head racing, very good competition, and along with freestyle, which is always a fan favorite up until this day. That concludes for the TNN era. Like I said, this is more of a footnote type set of videos, and I'll just keep going on and on as I go in this series for stuff I remember, I don't remember, and forget, and so on. Let's move on to the next era. Next era is a very short one, 2003. Why is this a short era? Because it is basically known as the lost season. This season of Monster Truck Racing for Monster Jam was officially lost, basically, because they never aired these on TV, to my knowledge. And to this day, it's fairly hard to find clips of a lot of these races. Basically, what happened was the contract ran up for TNN, which defunct into Spike TV at the time, and they did not have one set for another channel yet. So the entire first part of the season, which is their main season from January to March, was unaired. The only airing that happened from this year for the official season was the World Finals 4 in Sandboy Stadium in Las Vegas, as a few other races in the postseason did air later on, such as one in West Lebanon, New York, one in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and I believe the Minneapolis of that year also aired. So this is a very interesting era that there's actually a complete lost season of Monster Truck Racing due to contract not being met yet. Next era from 2003-ish to 2013 is the Speed era, which also is a sub-era I will get into in a minute. This is the era I grew up in. So basically, this is where it started to get a little bit more on the campy side, a little more pandering, but it wasn't bad really yet. It was still pure racing and freestyle at the stadium events, but you can see the style changed a lot, and I still like this. This is a very good era of Monster Truck Racing to me. It was very fun. As you can see, they started to make things a little bit bigger, a little bit better, a little more colorful too on the tracks. And believe it or not, that's actually a big thing in Monster Truck Racing, is people always talk about colors at tracks. It's a weird aspect, but yeah, it's actually a thing. I personally don't really care, but some people do. Some people actually do. It's a weird aspect, but that is something that gets brought up. This is probably what a lot of people are nostalgic over right now that watch the sport. They usually grew up with this. I mean, there's a lot of differences, like, there could be this to people who are nostalgic for the TNN era or the 90s. This is a subgenre I was talking about of an era. This is the Advanced Auto Parts era, where Monster Jam officially changed their name to Advanced Auto Parts Monster Jam with a sponsorship contract from Advanced Auto Parts from 2010 to 2013. Big changes here are, well, for one, the tracks lost a lot of color. Now they are all red and yellow, as in the Advanced Auto Parts color. There is a monster truck added, as you saw on your screen for a second, called the Advanced Auto Parts Grinder, that was driven by Lupe Sosa at first, and then added two more Advanced Auto Parts Grinders to the fleet, driven by John Cisak and Frank Krimmel. I think Nicole Johnson even got her start in one of those grinders, or not exactly a start, but I think she was in one in a Young Gun shootout, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Put in the comments if I'm wrong and if I'm being a dumbass. Another thing was, this is the era that they started to really, that the first major hit to the sport was started, not exactly a hit, but people were mad about it at the time, was they started to get rid of crush cars from the racing lanes. But I didn't like this at the time, but I would kill for these old tracks compared to what we have now. But what they also started to do was, instead of just having crush cars out there and different stacks is what they call these setups, they started embedding them into dirt, which is probably starting to be done because, like a lot of people will say, and I'll talk about throughout the series, newer cars do crush differently than older ones and do cause more problems because of how they're built now. And as you can see, they kind of solved this by embedding them into the dirt. So they're still getting crushed cars getting crushed, but they're not. But once they get crushed down to the point where they can't really be used anymore, they still have a dirt base for there to support a jump. As you can see, a lot of these included van stacks, bus stacks, stuff like that, but they were just used a lot more dirt involved. This is basically the perfect idea for this, and sadly, nowadays, this is basically gone. I'll get into this in a later video, but this is basically the perfect track right here, these tracks. Next era, the Fox Sports 1 era, or Fox Sports era, either way. This was the era where we first started to see kind of a downfall with the competition in the later end of the era. My first disappointment with the sport was in 2014, and where I started to see the turning point, but I didn't notice it getting extremely bad until about 2016, maybe 2015 for about half of it. And like I said, I'll explain this in later videos about how this works. As you can see, the paint changed up again, now purple and yellow, and that only lasted for about 2 years. Not even. They started to change up the paint schemes again throughout the next couple of years, and they kind of just lost their own rules after that. They started painting the tracks however they wanted, really. But it really defined only really 2 to 3 base colors and or one color in black, which even though it is a color, it kind of just is boring when it's painted on dirt or crushed cars. This era brought us stuff like point series, which we've actually been talking about for a long time before this, but this is where it actually arose. And we'll get into that about a be careful what you wish for aspect in a little bit in another video. But yeah, this is basically the big turning point of the series was this era right here. And I saw for years that Feld Motorsports was trying to cheapen it little by little. And I kept trying to tell people it's going to get worse and worse. Nobody listened at the time. And I was right. And I don't even watch Monster Jam anymore because of this. I will go to other promoters instead. I realized I messed up on something. I forgot to mention that Feld Motorsports bought the USHRA background, I believe, 2008. So if there's any confusion why I switched over from saying USHRA to Feld, that's why. I was going to put that as its own little footnote, and I forgot, and I'm too lazy to change the whole video around. So here we go. NBC Sports Network era. The worst era of monster truck racing to date. And I hope it doesn't get any worse than this. This one is bad. And I'll get into the whole thing from the shebang in the next videos. I'm just going to leave you with this right now, though, that the coverage is the worst it's ever been. Each coverage of monster truck racing now on NBC Sports is an hour long. It is, obviously pre-taped like the last ones, an hour long with just showing freestyle and then showing only the final race in between freestyle runs and some two-wheel skills highlights. They took the racing element completely out now when they cover it. That's bad. I don't understand why they're putting it like that. That was such a stupid idea. Back in the TNN days and the speed days, what they did was they'd air racing in 1 hour and freestyle 1 hour. They'd be 2 separate episodes. Go back to that. But that's all I got for this video. This is just the history. You can wait for more videos on my opinions. I'm going to break it down section by section by section. Next one will probably be early controversies. Thank you.